Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Hello, Central Penn students. This is CPC Dames Discuss. My name is Molly Peters, and I'm here with
Alexa Shughart
and Sarah Whitmire.
And today we will be talking about free college and the cost of tuition. And it's a controversial topic, so we're going to be discussing the pros and cons today. Should it be free? Sarah, what did you find on this topic?
Well, I found that there are different reasons why college should be free. You know, tuition-free college would help decrease student debt, for one. That would be a huge benefit, not only just for financial reasons, but also because I know as a student personally, it's a lot harder for me because of mental health reasons. Mental health is a huge thing when dealing with finances and having to learn how to budget, and it can just really take a huge toll on a person when they're in school.
I think another important part to mention in regards to student debt is also the fact that when you graduate college, not everybody has a job fresh off the boat. Some are still working that waitressing job, as I know Molly does, or I currently work at Target. And that's not the typical ideal job you want to have when you're faced with having to pay student debt off. You're kind of like, right off the bat of college, you're kind of still figuring out, whoa, I just graduated. Why all of a sudden do I have to start paying back hundreds of dollars in student debt? And I know some people do, some loan distributors offer kind of that grace period, but it's still not everyone can figure out their dream job straight out of college. And I think that's a really important piece to the student debt is, if it was free, that would just alleviate stress off the people graduating. That's another factor that would kind of change and be more positive than negative.
Well, and I think another thing that's important, too, that we should touch base on is the fact that even if you get internships when you're in college, which is a great thing, by the way. I think it's very important that you have internships when you're in college, regardless of your, degree and stuff. But even the jobs, the entry-level sort of jobs that you do land after college, a lot of them are not even sufficient to pay off the debt, to pay off your loans, or to make those monthly payments if you have payment plans set up. A lot of times these entry-level jobs are just really the bare minimum. And yeah, you're gaining experience, which is something that is super important. It's super, you're gaining knowledge outside of the classroom. But when you're paying tons and tons of money to go to school, you should be able to kind of land something that is worth it.
Especially when you're trying to deal with some college graduates, they're looking to buy a house or an apartment. Some even have families, and that's just another, like you were saying, just another stress factor of, okay, I just paid so much money to go to college, and now I'm faced with having to pay it all back in such a short amount of time.
Right. And something I do want to mention, I just dealt with a situation, college, sometimes navigating like financial aid and all that kind of stuff can be difficult. I just experienced a situation, not to go too far into detail, but I was having some issues with my stuff going through. So for the past 2 weeks, I really thought that I was going to have to pull tuition money out of thin air. And, circling back to what Sarah said about mental health and everything, I worked 6 days in a row at the restaurant I worked at, and I'm a server. And I literally felt completely depleted of everything. I was so drained, and it's like, you have to juggle work and schoolwork, and I started to fall behind again on my schoolwork. So it's like you have to be able to really have good time management. You have to be able to juggle all these different things, and it can be really, really hard. And that's just something that I think, at least maybe not free college, but, decreased tuition or whatever it may be, I think that's really important to address those sort of situations.
And
I agree, because I think that it would be very beneficial, not only just for the fact that, it would be a lot less pressure, but you'd also have more time to do schoolwork. You wouldn't have to focus on so much to, I'm having to work this many hours a week in order to stay afloat.
And what other pros were you finding, like, when you were kind of researching this topic?
Well, according to this article that I picked up, the U.S. economy and society has actually benefited from free college in the past. It says right here, nearly half of all college students in 1947 were military veterans. Military veterans get a lot more of a reprieve on... military veterans get more of a reprieve when it comes to prices on college. So, yeah, it's just a lot easier and, more attainable.
And so you're basically saying there's research that has shown that the economy has benefited from even kind of experimenting with free college in the past.
Yeah.
That's something I think a lot of people use the argument, if we're talking about this, we should discuss both sides. I know we're going to get a little more into it later, but the cons, a lot of people have a lot to say about arguing against free college, and they say, if you want free college, go join the military. And while I do, respect for people who are in the military, 100%, you shouldn't have to put your life on the line to get free college. That's just sort of how I see it.
It kind of is like they're trying to make it as a reward, but why should you have to go through all that when you're choosing that you want to go down a different path? I feel like those are two different paths. You either join the military or you go to college. So why should you have to go through one obstacle to get to the next? So I think that's a really good point that you brought up.
Well, and one more thing, too. I know a few different people who were in the military and then completed their college, their schooling. And there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through. There's a lot of, paperwork and everything. Not only that, there's a lot of, hidden sort of little things.
It's not as cut and dry.
Right. If you go, say, to a technical school, like a trade school, it doesn't always cover all that. Certain schools, it doesn't always cover full cost of tuition. So you could serve years in the military and be doing all this kind of stuff, and in the end, you're still going to have loans to pay back if you didn't plan accordingly and save up all this money. So that's just another thing to put out there as well. I think that's important to
Sarah,
talk
I think
about.
that's a really good point that you brought across with the economy benefiting from it.
And then I also believe that everyone deserves the opportunity for a free education, because, it's just like how children growing up, I feel like basic education at least should be free. Basic gen ed courses especially.
Like a community colleges.
Yeah.
If a lot of lower income households don't see those opportunities for their kids to thrive and flourish and step out into the world and experience college, and so they fall into those cycles of what's the word I'm looking for, like impoverished families, I guess, low income.
Yeah.
They kind of fall back into that cycle of low income families because they aren't able to pursue higher education. Not saying that's the only way to get your feet on the ground, but definitely something important to note as well.
Yeah, I think if everyone does deserve a free education, just like you receive as you go throughout elementary school. And why can't we take it to the college level, even if it was just community college? Because you got to remember, when we all started college, we all had to go through those processes of taking gen eds again, science, math, statistics, and health, even English. And it's just like, why are we paying money to take those courses we've already learned in high school? Because a lot of it is repeated information. I went to 2 different colleges and had to take multiple different gen eds, and it was repeated material I had already learned. Why are we paying for that when we already know that information? We should be paying for the information, if we are paying, that is relevant to our degree. So I think having free college would alleviate a lot of that repetition where we're paying for stuff we already have learned.
I think one more thing I want to just chime in here with real quick. Free college, the whole college application process, not only is it stressful, but you have to pay to apply to colleges. I know whenever I was a senior in high school, some of my friends were talking about when they applied to like big universities. One, for example, that I could talk about that I applied to, Temple University has an application fee of $50. You know, when you look at college and in the grand scheme, it's thousands and thousands of dollars. It's $50, but that $50 was coming out of my pocket. I didn't have anyone else paying for that for me. I was working a minimum wage job in high school just to get by. $50 was a lot of money for me to apply to one school. So, when you take into consideration application fees and you even think about textbooks and the whole process of moving to college, there's a lot of factors that go into it. One more thing, Central Penn College does not have an application fee. Just putting that out there while we're on the topic. I know some bigger schools have application fee waivers for low-income families, but Central Penn College doesn't even have one in the first place. So there is that.
Well, all right, we're going to take a break real quick here. My name is Sarah Whitmire, and you're listening to the CPC Dames Discuss.
Audio Jungle.
You're listening to CPC Dames Discuss with Molly Peters, Sarah Whitmire, and Alexa Shughart. Stay tuned.
Audio Jungle.
And we're back. This is Molly Peters, and I'm gathered here with Alexa Shughart and Sarah Whitmire. We're going to be continuing our discussion on free college. Like I said before, a controversial topic. So right now we're going to be heading to the other side of the argument and discussing the cons of free college. So Alexa?
There was a couple big ones that I found. To start off, I want to say I'm very both-sided with this argument. I've actually had to do a research paper where I analyzed the cons of this argument, so I can kind of see both sides. And one important factor that I found was, although tuition and college would be free, you got to remember that every student's story is different. So yes, we have free tuition, but you also have other factors, money factors that come into play. You still have to pay for books. If you're a commuter, you have to pay for gas to commute. If you're a student living on campus, while tuition would be free, you still have to pay for housing. So I think when people hear the argument free college, they just automatically assume everything is paid for. But that's not feasible, and that's not the case. You still have other factors that come into play when you hear free college. So yes, tuition may be waived, but you still have to be able to afford all of these other things. And I think an important part of it is, if college is free, that would take a lot away from the loans you receive and the scholarships you could apply for, because at that point, it's no longer in the hands of tuition. It's in the hands of, can I have a scholarship to be able to live on campus, which you don't really hear about those too often. So I think it would limit the chances quite a bit if we got rid of tuition in general.
Right, and that's something too, you mentioned if they completely waive the cost of tuition, if it's like government regulated in that aspect, what would happen with federal aid? And how would that cover, the cost of textbooks, like you mentioned, or housing? Stuff that, your financial aid and your FAFSA and everything you do, stuff that goes towards, how would it affect that? Would that even be a thing?
Right. It kind of wouldn't even, at that point, it wouldn't even play a part, which relates to, would people lose their jobs? Like, would this go away completely? I think it would be, getting rid of tuition would come with a whole different structure change of how we apply ourselves to these universities and these college campuses. A whole change that a lot of people don't realize how drastic it would be. And that kind of relates me to my next topic, which would be taxpayers. Yes, we're saying that tuition is free, but it's not coming without a price. Somebody is paying for that, and it's the taxpayers. And you got to think, you would be taking out a loan that you would eventually be paying back. These taxpayers, they're paying taxes for us to go to free college. And I would bet that another point that I wanted to mention was, if college becomes free and everyone can attend, that would drop tuition rates, and it would drop kind of the efficiency rate. Everyone would be entering college, but a lot of them wouldn't have the willpower of what it takes to finish. So we're all entering college for free, not not finishing, and that would be then wasting the taxpayer dollars, and it would drop the rate of the colleges. So then colleges look like, oh, everyone just comes and joins, but they drop out. Maybe they don't have a good system, when that wouldn't even be the case. It would just be, oh, everyone can go to college, so everyone, let's not apply ourselves. I think that because we all have loans that we took out, it's kind of like a driving factor, like, if I just drop out, I'm going to have to pay so much more back, and I won't have a good job in my field to be able to help pay those back.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, because there are so many times where I'll be, in one of those funks where I'm like, oh my gosh, what is the point of this? Why am I continuing on? And I feel like the fact that I'm paying so much for my education is the driving factor of keeping me going.
Right.
And I feel like if that wasn't there, it would be easier for me to be like, you know what? I can just quit right now. It's fine. I'm not going to have any repercussions of it.
And I know for me, the only way I was able to come to college, when I went to my old college, was my aunt had to take out a loan for me. So it's not really just a loan coming out of my name, but it's also coming out of my aunt's name. And if I just drop out and I have to pay those back and I can't afford to pay those back, not only is my credit ruined, but her credit is ruined also. And they're going to come for me if I don't pay them loans back.
That's something else, too, to point out is credit. Like,
right.
When you're fresh out of high school, you just turned 18, you have no credit unless for something like if you bought a car with your parents who co-signed. But then, too, if your parents don't have credit or have terrible credit, you're kind of screwed. You're kind of like, what's next, But you bring up a good point, too, with talking about enrollment and everything, because I think graduation rates would definitely, obviously, go down if tuition was free, because people are going to drop out. They don't care. When I was in high school, there was a lot of people who you could tell did not want to be there. If you go through the entire application process to go to college, and yeah, you're going to have people who drop out of college. It's just a part of it. Some people, it's not for everybody, whatever. But whenever you're in high school, you have people who obviously don't care. You're kind of filtering out those people when you're in college, if that makes sense. If you have free college, you're going to have people whose parents will force them to go, and then they're just not going to care.
So you're saying that the people that kind of struggle to finish high school because they're not really motivated, if they just knew that college was waiting for them, they would just go do that and also not be motivated, and that it would kind of just be them repeating the same behavior. That's
right.
Kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah. So, like, when I'm in a classroom setting, I like to be around people who care and who are there to learn. And a lot of times again, going back to high school, you would have people who goof off in class or who wouldn't have actual intellectual points to make and are just being dumb. And, I think that would take away from your personal college experience if you're in a classroom or a lecture and nobody has anything beneficial to add to the discussion. It's going to take away from your experience and what you're learning.
Yeah, I think that kind of just brings me back. When I was, researching all of these three kind of points on why free college would not be the best thing for us as, a country, I think my biggest one was the dropout rates, because if people are just going to school just because they can, that makes us look bad, and whatever college you go to, that makes them look bad. And I agree, when you go to college, you want to be able to grow and you want to be able to learn. And if you're surrounded by people who just are here because they're here, kind of like you have in high school, it, just as you said, perfect point that you mentioned, it does take away from your experience, and it would take away from your opportunities as well. So I definitely agree with that point.
Yeah, it brings me back to how I had a class last term that you could definitely tell that there were people that didn't want to be there. And I feel like free college would also be an open door for people that don't want to be there as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Also, with free college, I think that, the graduation rates would go down. Even if a student was accepted, if it was a really difficult school to get into and they're accepted and they just don't care, there's nothing driving them or motivating them, they might drop out just because they can. Graduation rates are going to go down, and that's going to reflect really poorly on the school. I feel like that's something that's really important to look at as it is when you're applying to colleges, is the graduation rate. And Central Penn is really good at giving us resources for when we do graduate with our internships and everything, our Career Services Center is really good with making sure that we are basically set up for success after graduation.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good way to tie this up because I think when people hear the idea of free college, they're right for it because they don't want to pay for college. They want to be able to have that free education, but it's not always like cut and dry like it seems. There are a lot of factors that a wonderful professor one time tell me that maybe we don't have to create free tuition, but maybe we could drop the interest rate so that we're not paying as much towards our student loans, because the interest rate is what kills a lot of college kids because it just keeps going up and going up. I mean, I'm more than open to say that I have an 11% interest rate on one of my loans right now. So I just just the thought of that makes me so stressed out. So yes, I know everyone may think we want free college, but there are other ways we can go about like changing the system without fully getting rid of the system.
Well, all right, we're going to take a break here real quick. My name is Sarah Whitmire. I'm here with Alexa Shughart and Molly Peters, and this is CPC Dames Discuss.
Audio Jungle.
You're listening to CPC Dames Discuss with Molly Peters, Alexa Shughart, and Sarah Whitmire. Stay tuned.
Audio Jungle.
What's up, y'all? We're back. My name is Molly Peters. I'm here with Alexa Shughart and Sarah Whitmire, and we are still on the topic of free college, student debt. So that's what I'm going to be talking about right now. Just to put some numbers out there, according to Forbes.com, in a study they did in November of 2021, there is currently 45 million people in the U.S. who owe a collective total of $1.7 trillion. I just want to pause for dramatic effect and let that sink in. $1.7 trillion in college debt. And I know we talked mainly about free college today, but I think something else that's important to discuss is the reality of that. Free college is probably not going to be happening anytime soon. So if you are in college or you're about to enter college, some other opportunities for you, whether it be scholarships or anything like that. In an article I found with Bankrate, some websites for scholarships, and I have used a couple of these before. I remember it was a while ago, but there are a few different ones that honestly, there's scholarships for some of the strangest things ever you wouldn't even believe. But scholarships.com, pretty straightforward name there. Scholarships.com, FastWeb, CapEx, Niche, Chegg. I've used Chegg before. Unigo, Scholly, Scholarship Owl, just to name a few there. I know a lot of times schools also do scholarships. I know here at Central Penn College we have the Education Foundation, and they run scholarship opportunities for students, so that's something that's super beneficial for us here.
And I think you mentioned a really good part about how this the idea of having free college definitely won't be coming into effect anytime soon. So the fact that you're like giving our listeners kind of a way to cope with that and applying for scholarships. And I think the biggest piece to throw in when we mention scholarships is that you have to be willing to apply yourself. These scholarships are not just going to come to your front door, although a lot of schools will give you the resources you need to apply for scholarships. You just have to really apply yourself. And a lot of times, I think when people hear about scholarships, they think they have to write a 10-page paper and that their chances of getting accepted are slim. But even with Central Penn's Education Foundation, they don't even ask for an essay. It's a short essay, but I wouldn't even consider it an essay.
I think this past term it was 200 to 300 words.
Yeah, and that's if you.
I think I wrote 5 just to write, because I didn't get my point. Like, it's so easy to do.
That's an important part. You don't have to write the bare minimum. You can go more. And we here at the college, we tend to get a lot back from the college in regards to scholarship amount-wise, which I think is important. But while we're on the topic of scholarships, I think it's really important to throw in that you have to be willing to apply yourself to get that money. The money is there, you just need to apply yourself.
Right. I know Central Penn College has awarded, I think, annually $1.3 million back to students.
Look at you coming in with the
scholarship and aid.
statistics.
Right. I've done my research. But no, I know a lot of schools that offer scholarships, and it's just a matter of finding them. Even if it's not, like I mentioned, websites that you can find scholarships that are just outside of the actual college you're attending. But a lot of colleges have opportunities for scholarships. It's just a matter of actually finding them and applying yourself.
They're definitely out there. You just have to look.
I know that was a lot of my frustration getting into college, was finding scholarships, and in all honesty, scholarships have been saving me.
Right. Yeah, I definitely, and not only does it help, but I think it's a rewarding factor. I know that when I apply for scholarships, if I am lucky enough to win, when I see that letter that says, hey, you just won this scholarship, to me, I feel so much more proud of myself.
Right. It's like this paper I just spent all this time.
Won me money.
Yeah, right. Like, I just wrote this paper, poured my heart into it, and it's worth this much money.
Right.
That's a good feeling. It means that your work that you're putting out is actually worth something. It's a very rewarding feeling.
Yeah, I think definitely the letter saying you just earned this through your hard work is a driving factor. So definitely apply. I will always advocate for scholarships and to apply yourself to those scholarships.
I remember my senior year of high school when I was looking on these different scholarship websites. There was another one that I did not mention because I could not find it anywhere. I don't remember the name of it. I tried doing my research. I could not find it. But there was a website where there was literally scholarships for, like, if you shopped at certain stores, and you could, like, write reviews on these stores and, like just stuff like that, and these companies would, like, give you scholarship money just for stuff like that. Another thing too is a lot of places of employment, I know just off of the top of my head, like Starbucks and Chipotle will help you pay for college if you work there. I know some people I know who work at Chipotle and are actually getting money back while they're in school.
Another part to mention is when you apply scholarships, that shows potential hires when you graduate that you care about the field that you work in and you want to be successful. And if they see on your resume that you won 5 scholarships in the total of 4 years of being out of college, or even 2 years of being out of college, that looks good on your end. And not only are you proud, but also they can look at that and say, well, this person really applies themselves. I bet they would apply here at this position too.
Right. Scholarships are something that you can put on, like, a portfolio or on your LinkedIn, and that's, like, a huge deal for companies. Like, well, this person's pretty good at writing, so it won them a scholarship. We're going to hire them.
I know for me, I kind of stigmatized it before applying for scholarships because, I'm 26 years old, and it's kind of on the later side for students to start college. And for me, I've always felt like scholarships were for students that were just coming out of high school. So that's not the case at all.
No discrimination in scholarships. You can be any age, anywhere in your college career. I just think they're a great thing to apply yourself for.
Something that's also just something else to note when talking about free colleges is a lot of other countries do have free college. And I know there's a lot of countries who do, like, community colleges for free. Something interesting is Sweden. In Sweden, only students pursuing research-based doctoral degrees get free tuition. Some programs of study offer stipends to international students. However, it said, in the article, it says, nevertheless, students should be aware that Sweden's high cost of living may put them over budget even when they pay nothing to earn their degrees. So kind of goes back to what Alexa was talking about in I believe our second segment, that even if tuition's free, you're still going to have to pay for housing. You're still going to have to pay for, your commute. You're still going to have to pay for food. We need food to live. Even as a college student, ramen noodles every night isn't going to cut it. So you need
terrible cafe food. Not Central Penn, though.
Yeah, definitely not Central Penn. But, there's other costs associated with it. Textbooks. I know some schools make you, Central Penn does not do this, by the way, but some schools make you pay for a parking permit per semester. I have a friend who goes to Penn State, and I'm pretty sure it's like $50 to $100 per semester.
I had to pay for a parking permit and I forgot, and the college that I used to go to gave me a ticket and fined me, and I had to pay that back too.
Like that's just insane to me. Like,
and their parking spaces, they had 3 parking lots for a private school with many, many kids going to it.
Thank goodness that Central Penn does not do that. All you have to do to acquire a parking pass is just go to the security office and get one.
Right.
No money needed. It's great. It's wonderful. But going back to my main point is there's so many other costs associated with college. Not to mention, if you're living on campus, you have to decorate. You have to buy all the good stuff to, make it feel like home. And you kind of laughed there, but honestly, when you're away, when you're miles and miles and miles from home, you want to make it feel like home. Because, that's like a mental health aspect of it. You want to feel at home. You're going to pay for that kind of stuff, which it may not be necessary, but it is a cost associated with college.
Yeah, and I think this is a great way to wrap it up, because we hear this idea of free college and everyone's for it at first, but I think it's really important to mention, as we have throughout this podcast, all the different factors that come into play, whether it's the pros, whether it's the cons, whether it's the student debt that we're dealing with. And all these factors really play a big part in this discussion. So I think we offered a really great discussion, and I think the biggest takeaway from this podcast is that we keep pushing for these scholarships, because free college or not, they're never a bad thing to apply yourself for.
Right. And like you said, scholarships. Like, you have professors who preach it, and it's kind of like in one ear out the other until you get that email that, hey, you received X amount of dollars. And it's like, oh, that's way less money than I'm going to be paying off for the next however many years of my life. So, free college isn't, like I said, something that's going to happen in the near future. So for right now, I think scholarships and any sort of aid that you can get is really important.
Well, it was a great discussion with you ladies today. This has been CPC Dames Discuss with Sarah Whitmire, Alexa Shughart, and Molly Peters. Thank you for listening.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.